So now we're going to see a pre-recorded video from Caitlin Roper. She's from Australia, and the title of her talk is Women as Objects, Sex Dolls. And she says, I explore sex dolls and robots as a form of pornography and an emerging form of technology used against women to facilitate men's abuse of women and turn women into pornography. Caitlin Roper is a writer, activist, and campaigns manager at Collective Shout for a world free of sexploitation, a founding member of Adopt Nordic WA, and co-founder of Feminist Academy of Technology and Ethics. Her book, Sex Dolls, Robots and Women Hating, The Case for Resistance 2022, is available from Spinifex Press. So we're going to now hear from Caitlin.
Hi everyone, my name is Caitlin Roper from Perth, Western Australia. I'm campaigns manager at Collective Shout for a World Free of Sexploitation, a grassroots campaigning movement challenging the objectification of women and sexualization of girls in media, advertising, and popular culture. My first book, Sex Dolls, Robots and Woman Hating, The Case for Resistance, has just been published by Spinifex Press, and this has been released just a few weeks ago. The book is a feminist response to the development of sex dolls and robots made in the likeness of women and girls. I expose the inherent misogyny of the industry and outline the many harms of these products to women and girls, like reinforcing their sexual objectification, encouraging male sexual entitlement and violence against women. I make the case for resistance, that we need to strongly oppose the trade in replica women and girls for men's sexual use, and share some of the feminist activism and campaigns against the trade in sex dolls and robots. Today, what I'd like to focus on is sex dolls and robots as a form of pornography and how these products are being used against women. Sex dolls and robots modeled on the bodies of women and girls, produced for men's sexual use, represent the literal objectification of women. They are objects, things in the likeness of women, embodied representations of women manufactured for the express purpose of being sexually used. They function as pornified, compliant replica women and girls that are sexually available at all times. Advocates argue sex dolls and robots could be used as stand-ins for women, but a female-bodied sex doll or robot, an object, could only be interchangeable with a woman if women themselves are regarded as objects. The notion that a female-shaped piece of silicon with penetrable orifices could be a replacement for a woman is premised on misogyny, the belief that a woman is reducible to her sexual attributes, that she occupies less than human status and exists to be sexually penetrated. Doll owners relate to their dolls as though they are women. They do to their dolls what they want to do to women. In my book, I expose doll owners' violent use of their dolls. Some men performed acts of sexualized violence, BDSM, and torture on their dolls, which they document through pornographic videos and photos shared to online forums and websites dedicated to sex doll porn. These men tied up their dolls. They acted out detailed scenarios of sex slavery and predation on their dolls. Some men broke their dolls through rough use. Others said they used their dolls as practice for sexual relations with women. Last month, what appeared to be a dead body washed up on the shore of a Thailand beach turned out to be a discarded, headless sex doll. In recent years, there have been a growing number of cases where abandoned sex dolls are initially mistaken for dead women and girls, to the point where it's becoming an issue for police. Prior to being dumped, some of these dolls appear to have been subjected to extreme violence, found decapitated, mutilated, and ripped apart. In the book, I explore sex dolls and robots as a form of 3D, potentially interactive pornography. These products are made with a really pornographic aesthetic in mind and designed to mimic the surgically enhanced bodies of female porn performers. Some are actually made in the likeness of specific female porn performers and made from molds of their bodies. sex doll manufacturer Real Doll partnered with porn production company Wicked to produce Wicked Real Dolls, modeled on female performers. Sex dolls and robots also embody the messages, the ideology of porn, that women are objects for men's sexual use. They replicate the same power dynamics between men and women that are expressed in pornography, male dominance and female subordination. In porn, as Andrea Dworkin describes, men are human and women are objects, and now men are using literal objects in place of women. In her book, Pornography and Silence, Culture's Revenge Against Nature, Susan Griffin made some really insightful observations about this dynamic of woman as object. And she wrote, "A being exists only in order to exist. For a woman or a man exists no particular material purpose, but a thing, an object, must have a reason for being, a function. And where the pornographic woman is concerned, that function is to please a man. She exists for his pleasure. Not only does a woman exist to serve and to please, but in this subordinate existence of hers, she has no rights whatsoever, for she does not belong to herself." Griffin, too, identified these dolls as a form of pornography. She referred to them as pornographic dolls and argued they were the pornographic object's most quintessential form. She described these pornographic dolls as an actual plastic copy of a woman, made to replace a woman and to give a man pleasure without the discomfort of female presence. She describes the appeal of these dolls to the pornographic mind. Her vagina opens on command. She is ready to go night after night. She does not talk back. She is perfectly controllable. I also discuss the growing trend in sex doll or sex robot themed porn. There are sites dedicated to porn featuring sex dolls or to men filming themselves using their dolls. The dolls are portrayed as though they are real women. On one website, each doll had its own performer page, which had its name, its photo, a little bio, and physical details like ethnicity and body measurements. The pornographic titles featuring sex dolls usually followed typical porn scripts. They were dominated by male aggression, and the replica, women, portrayed as desiring and enjoying degradation and abuse. Men turned their dolls into porn stars, using their dolls to make pornographic content, which they then distribute on online forums. Men are imposing their sex dolls on women in both public and private, which I explore in the book, as a form of pornography and a sexist, insulting caricature of women. Sex dolls and robots forced on women constitute sexual harassment. They communicate that women are reducible to their sexual attributes and functions, and that they exist for men's sexual use. When brought into public spaces, they create a hostile and unsafe environment for women and girls. And there are various examples of sex dolls being brought into the public space. Sex dolls have been used to fill seats at a South Korea football game, to fill seats in restaurants during COVID. There are also sex doll experience cafes, doll brothels and rental services, and men who take out their dolls in public and do activities with them. These men are imposing their sexual fetish on women who feel powerless to object. In the third chapter of my book, Sex Dolls and Technological Terrorism, I quote Sheila Jeffreys in a profound observation from her autobiography, Trigger Warning, My Lesbian Feminist Life. And she says, "Men will make use of whatever technology is available to engage in forms of terrorism against women." I situate female-bodied sex dolls and robots within a context of technology that is being used against women, that is used to facilitate men's abuse and violation of women, and to turn women into pornography. There's a growing trend, this growing trend of image-based abuse, also known as revenge porn, where men distribute intimate or pornographic images of women without their consent. And this is often done with the intention to punish or shame the woman. We're seeing various social media spaces being used for these purposes. Facebook groups, WhatsApp chats, online forums and subreddits. where men trade pornographic images of women and girls, complete with identifying information at times, where they post photos of their girlfriends and invite other men to degrade them. Women can be made into pornography by men without their participation, without ever having taken or shared nude photos. Some women have learned of pornographic videos made and shared to porn sites by their male partners, videos they didn't know existed, some even made when they were unconscious. Men can turn women into pornography through deepfake software that allows them to seamlessly superimpose the face of any given woman onto that of a performer in a porn video. So it appears to be a pornographic video of that woman. Deep nude apps allow them to virtually undress a woman, turning images of fully clothed women into nude images. Men turn women into pornography even as they're just going about their day-to-day lives. Through the use of hidden cameras, which are cheap and readily available, men can surreptitiously film women in toilets, showers, locker rooms, hotel rooms, and their workplaces. And this is a popular porn genre. Entire websites and online forums are dedicated to upskirting or downblousing images, photos revealing women's cleavage or where their nipples are visible through their clothing, wardrobe malfunctions, or just generally out of context images where women didn't intend to reveal their private parts or for these moments to be captured or to be used for men's sexual gratification. There are also reported cases of breastfeeding voyeurism, where men take photos of women when they breastfeed their babies in a public place, like the park or on the train. These men transform the act of a mother feeding her baby into porn for their own enjoyment. I argue that sex dolls and robots are another emerging form of technology that can be used against women and girls. Through the production of sex dolls and robots, men can turn women into three-dimensional porn, and they have. Sex dolls can be made in the likeness of actual women, and there are several accounts of this in the book. Various companies are offering this service to make sex dolls customized in the likeness of specific women and even little girls, based on a customer-supplied photo. You can imagine just how devastating it must have been for these women who learned of sex dolls made in their likeness, even given their names. In an open expression of misogyny, some men claim to have commissioned dolls in the likeness of specific women. This was generally a tactic to silence a woman, to put her in her place, to humiliate and degrade her, and assert dominance over her. Doll advocates, including those who campaign to preserve men's access to child sex abuse dolls, claim that their use of sex dolls is harmless, that it's just a fantasy. Some call these dolls, modeled on the bodies of little girls, toddlers, and babies, fantasy sexual outlets. But men's sexual use of replica women and children is not merely a fantasy. As Andrea Dworkin explained, a fantasy is something that happens in your head. It doesn't go past your head. Once you have somebody acting out whatever that scenario might be in your head, it is an act in the world. It is real. When men seek out, buy, and perform sex acts on a doll designed to look and feel like a real woman or child, they have moved beyond the realm of fantasy and into the realm of behavior. These are real acts in the world. While the fantasy might be that the replica woman or girl they are penetrating is an actual woman or child, or that it desires them, the sex act, or the violence, is not a simulation, it is real. As I write in the book, men's fantasies for sexually using and abusing women and children, acted out on lifelike dolls, occur within a wider culture where such sexualized abuse is not a fantasy, but a reality for many women and girls. Men's fantasies are women's lived experiences. I cover a lot more ground in the book. I expose the academic supporters of sex robot technology and their commitment to upholding the male sex right. I discuss the parallels between the sex trade and the trade in sex dolls and robots. I devote a couple of chapters to child sex abuse dolls and also look at the ways in which women are groomed to tolerate men's sex doll use. In the midst of an epidemic of male violence against women, where men's violence remains one of the greatest threats to women's health, well-being, and their very lives, this reinforcement of the objectification and dehumanization of women only makes things worse. Female-bodied sex dolls and robots are an expression of woman-hating. Things are bad enough for women. We know this. We cannot afford for them to get worse. We need to expose, confront, and challenge male sexual entitlement. This belief that men have a right to sex and that they are entitled to women's bodies. We need to call out and fight the everyday sexual objectification of women, not legitimize and reinforce it through the development of sex dolls and robots. We need to resist.